Well, good morning and welcome to the Great Transitions Senior Living Seminar Series. This episode we are going to be talking about the truth about downsizing and decluttering, especially as it relates to the two areas that I can't help you with. That's your photographs and your documents. Those are very personal items, and so we're going to dive into a little bit of that today. Just some history on the Great Transition Senior Living Series. This seminar series was founded in 2013 by Paul and Lynn Henderson to guide seniors during one of life's biggest transitions. And Great Transitions is a system for working with seniors and their families as their lifestyle needs and housing needs change. This can take a little bit of time, and that's why each of you are in the room. It can be 12 to 18 months, sometimes even longer, and we're here to guide you through the entire process. Our objective is to educate people about legal, financial, housing, medical, and other general issues and topics of importance as it relates to you. And that's why we try to bring you a fresh topic, fresh spin on a topic every month. We're not here to try and sell you anything. We're just here to provide information. And so with that, we have a couple of challenges. I was on a real estate mastermind call just the other day, and we talked about something that made me think of each one of you in the room. And you all are here because you're planners at some level. And the quote I heard was, when you start the process early, you have the power to slow down. So much better than having to be reactive and speed up the process. Right? So kudos to each of you for being in the seat today and beginning that plan, because the power is in your hands. So, with that said, we are going to get started and dive in to our topic. We talked about documents and photographs, right? Each of these two areas not only tells your story of where you have been, what you have accomplished, what's important to you, but it also is part of your legacy, a part of something for you to leave future generations. And you may not think of documents as being part of your legacy as much as photographs, but when I helped my parents downsize, my mother had a bunch of canceled checks. She was a banker, and these were from 1964-ish. And every Friday, there was a $10 check that she cashed. And she said that was our money for the weekend. And it blew me away, because you can barely buy a cup of coffee for $10. But that lasted them all weekend in 1964. We're going to talk about sorting, decluttering, organizing photos and documents. And that can seem very overwhelming. I am overwhelmed with mine. So I'm really glad y'all are here today. And it's something that is not really always emergent, so we kind of say we'll do it later, right? Because it's still going to be there. So today our panelists are going to walk us through some of the best steps to get those projects tackled. So first, I would like to introduce Diana Uricchio. She is the owner of OXO Digital Organizing. She is a certified photo and vital document organizer and has been an active member of the Photo Managers for 11 years. She lives here in Orlando with her husband and twin 19-year-old sons. Whew, bless your heart. 19 is great. 2 must have been hard. After nearly 10 years in software sales, she decided to focus her love of tech with the needs of families to tackle the docs you have to keep and the memories you want to keep. Her focus is on helping clients with complex family collections. Diana has helped numerous clients find just the right mix of physical order and digital bliss to ensure that their family legacy will live on forever. And then we also have Heather Doney, owner of Life in a Box. Those of you that are in Downsizers Club will remember Heather from coming to visit us there. She is a master of the art of organization. Her mission and passion is to ensure peace of mind for the families she works with. She'll discuss with you the importance of having your family documents properly stored, organized, and ready in the event of an emergency. Heather started Life in a Box in 2018 out of necessity when they were sending their oldest daughter to college out of state. She knew that that daughter would need certain documents and information as she ventured out on her own. Her specialty is organization of documents, but she also loves helping her clients downsize and declutter their homes. Having someone by your side to hold you accountable, but also care about you and your goals is a passion for her. We all need a friend like that, don't we? She understands how important personal items are and uses a gentle and loving approach when deciding what to take along to the next phase of life. No matter the age or situation, Heather will work with you to provide that peace of mind. So thank you, ladies, both for being here. So we're going to start, let's start with the paper, the documents. Heather, why is it important to get them all in one place, and what's the benefit of doing that?
Okay, yeah, so why would it be important to get them all in one place? I mean, I feel like we all like a good treasure hunt, you know, at times when there's like gold at the end or maybe some food. But when an emergency arises, if we've ever left our home during an emergency, right, whether it be a fire, a flood, a hurricane, if you don't know where things are, what feeling comes out? Panic, right? I thought I put it there, it's not there, I don't know where it is. So having them all in one place, and now we're sort of shifting to digital, but I'm still an old soul. I like to have a little paper, I like the proof, I like to see it. And it doesn't matter which one you prefer. The idea is to get it all in one kind of area, so if you had to grab and go, or if you had to call a family member and say, can you please get my documents, I just was in a car wreck, I gotta go to the hospital, whatever the case may be, they're not going on a treasure hunt when really their first thing they want to do is get to you first, right? They don't want to take a detour in order to get to their loved one. So that would be the benefit of getting them all in one place, is that you can get to your loved one as soon as possible and or leave in an emergency as soon as possible without having to feel flustered, stressed, disorganized, and you know, kind of like you forgot something at home, right? So that would be it.
Awesome, awesome. That peace of mind, I think, is really key, getting them in one place. So I got a lot of paper. And I don't know if anybody else does, but what are those important documents that we need to think about getting all in one place?
Okay, well, I'm only going to say a few, but on the table to the side before you leave, I brought a list of the top 25 or so documents listed out in different categories that could maybe strike up, you know, an idea of if you needed it or had it. Everybody's different, but the real top ones are your DNR. Do you have your DNR? Is it taped to the refrigerator? Is it where someone can see it? It doesn't even matter your age. If you have a college student, if you have someone that already knows that's what they want, that needs to be with them. There needs to be a copy of it. I met a woman that has like a little bag in her purse and she has it folded up, so if she was in a wreck or something like that, it's right there for the emergency people. They don't have to look for it. So your DNR. Do you have a power of attorney for family members to be able to help you if you aren't able to make decisions on your own? Or your healthcare surrogate for when you're in the hospital or needing healthcare. Do you have those things ready so that someone knows what your wishes are and or who's in charge of making those determinations? The next couple ones would be your insurance policies. Do you know where those are? Do you have a will or a trust? And remember, you need the original will. A copy is not going to be enough, so you need to have some place where your original will be. And then if you have real estate property. So those would be the top ones that you would want to consider, but there, like I said, there's a list I brought for you to take on your way out to kind of help kind of jog your memory on what you might want to start gathering.
Awesome. I think that's super helpful because a lot of times we get those documents done and we think we're done, but we really need to have them accessible. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process because it's hard to get some of those documents done. Those are never, Linda, where are you? Yeah, those aren't the fun appointments usually.
Oh, I make them fun.
Okay, all right,
girl, gotta have fun.
We love that. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about some photos. They can be so very personal. Why is there a need to downsize and declutter them? Because it's my whole life. If I get rid of some of them, I might be getting rid of part of me.
Well, they are very personal. Really, I tell folks, my clients, it's usually one of three things. They want to simplify what they have. And that simplify may mean they just want to be able to find things easier, or they want to be able to know where things are, or put them all in one place. Second reason is they want to secure those items. Maybe they're not so worried about downsizing or simplifying, but they want to just make sure that there's a backup. Or if a hurricane hits or a fire hits, they still have their memories preserved. And then lastly, they want to share. And sometimes that means sharing with themselves. Maybe their whole life story is tucked in boxes under their bed, and they're not actually able to display these pictures or tell these stories. Other times it's just with, local family. And then for those of you that are thinking about legacy, it's about sharing with future generations. And because these are so personal, and the stories, you have pictures, but there's stories attached to those that are personal to you, and that's why you really have to do something with them to make sure that you're able to pass all of this on to future generations.
Awesome, thank you. And we talked about this on our call when we met earlier. What's the difference between downsizing and decluttering?
It's funny because people get these confused a lot of times. I would say, so starting with decluttering, I think a lot of us do this all the time. If you think about, you get the mail in, you go through, you get rid of the envelopes and the junk mail, you're just decluttering a pile. And that's simple, very similar with photos. You can very quickly go and declutter a box of photos, maybe get rid of a few, what do we call them, dupes, the duds and dupes, the ones that are not the greatest photos, the blurry ones, the duplicate photos. But when you're wanting to downsize, that is where it's very different. You're actively saying, I want to minimize the footprint of this collection. You might be looking at 3 bookshelves of albums and photos and scrapbooks, and you need to get that down to 1 bookshelf, and that's downsizing. Now, it doesn't mean that you are, throwing away memories. You're actually, you're curating. You're really trying to refine that collection so it tells a story, and usually that's actually enhancing your memory collection. If you think about a museum, if you go to a museum or an art show, by no means are they putting everything out there. They are actually curating and being very thoughtful as to what they're going to display, and then that is an attractive thing for others to come to. So, and that gets into what our families want. They don't want those dusty boxes. They want a refined collection of memories. So that's really the difference between just decluttering a little bit and actually downsizing, refining your photos.
I think we might be switching from downsizing to curating. I love that. That is a great word. The curating club instead of the downsizing club. What do you think?
So fancy.
Sounds so fancy. I know. And something that you want to do, right?
When I have to give a colleague credit. There was a lady up in New York, and she actually came from museum and art curating, and actually I want to say she's the photo curator. And when you hear her speak and you see what she's done with photo collections, you look at it very differently. So people get excited about doing that versus just downsizing.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, Heather. Important documents are typically very personal, very confidential, very private, and yet is this something that I have to organize alone?
Well, first let's go with the personal and private. One thing that I am passionate about is getting with someone that you trust. So me coming into your home, you're like, whoa, I'm not real sure. I need you to see like my bank account, my social security number. So you can't just have someone coming into your home. Like they'll say, yeah, I'll help you organize your documents. Give me $10 an hour. Well, are they insured? Do they have credibility? Do they work in that arena? So for someone like me, I work in insurances, and I have licenses throughout the states, and I go to classes, and I have to take continuing education so that I even know what we're reading on your document. It's just not like, hey Susie, can you come over and just help me? Well, they can, but is it going to be a valuable time that you're going to spend, and are they going to just come in and start throwing things that shouldn't be thrown? So finding someone that you trust to be with those delicate documents that will actually take the time to review them with you also, right? To double check to make sure that things are in order. And then when we do it alone, that's overwhelming. Anybody start the project yet? From Downsizers Club, we had a homework, right? I've seen you 2 months ago, right? So we know already that it's not fun. It's not something you want to do. So when you have someone like me come in, or someone that is a person that you trust, you want to make sure they have a fun, bubbly personality also. Because you can have conversations, you can make it fun, you can talk about your family, your it's a whole process, but there's a way to do it that is not drudgery. There's a way to do it to make it a goal to leave a great legacy for those that are going to need to find them and do something with them later. So you don't do it alone. You have phone calls with me. You can have email conversations. You can have, in-person chats. So that's sort of where it takes that off of your shoulders, and then you make it sort of like, just something fun, having coffee and doing some paperwork.
Right. Love that. So once I get it all organized, and my trusted confidant has helped me to weed through it, it's all in one place. Where do I keep it? Who do I tell about it? All of those things.
Okay. So keeping it all in one place, you have to be a little bit strategic about that, because you don't just want to air your laundry to everybody, right? You can't just be like, hey, this is my private personal binder or whatever. So you have to be a little camouflage. It's great if you have a safe. It's great if you have a place. There's a ton of different options for safes and waterproof type document bags that look just like a suitcase type thing. So those are good ways to start. If you have a safety deposit box, that's great. However, please make sure someone else has a key. So, and that someone else knows where that is and what bank. Who are you going to let know about the location? That could be the person that helps you put it all together. If you live alone but you have really good neighbors that like come check on your dog or your cat or get your mail when you're gone, that could be a person that you could say, hey, if there was ever an emergency, could you grab my binder, bring it to me, or give it to my family member. The other thing would be your attorney, your CPA, someone in the financial world that would have access to your private information anyway. You can let them know, hey, there's also some additional things that I would like my family to have. Have the conversations, but start with the people you would call at 4 a.m. for an emergency that you know you can count on.
Awesome, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, Diana, back to photos. What if I have boxes and boxes of photos and numerous albums? Maybe I inherited some of that stuff from my parents or grandparents, so I got all their stuff. Where do I even begin?
Take a deep breath. Well, let me tell you a project that I'm working on right now. I went into this client's home, and actually in the garage, she had 54 clear plastic bins, like about half the size of the table. 54 of those that were filled with albums, scrapbooks, frames, slides, all sorts of memorabilia. And this is not her current family, but everything that she inherited from her parents. She had a brother that also passed away and everything. So I'm very familiar with that. And it is not unusual to not only have your lifetime of photos, but to have inherited these things from other people. So first thing, just take a deep breath, decide, okay, this is something that's going to take some time. And then, if you have somebody that can help, fantastic. If you're able to, have somebody come in and either do some of it for you or just work alongside, that's a huge help. But really, you're going to have to first kind of what I call assess the mess. Just figure out what you have. Figure out if you have loose photos. Do you have albums? Are those albums organized in any such, any way? Is there organizational structure, or is it just a complete mess? Mm-hmm. And then also think about the people in your lives, and who's going to care about what you're going to find in here, what your goals are, and let those kind of drive your decisions. Because there's going to be a lot of decision points. There's going to be a lot of times where you've got to say, okay, this is really important. I've got to do this. And then there's going to be other boxes where you're saying, what? Of all the things I have to do, this may not be top priority. And we can get into so many of those little details, but there's you really do have to make some of those decisions, and then just kind of break it down into different different phases or different projects, because that's what that's going to be. And like I said, I can certainly give you some direction on kind of that process and what that's going to look like. But you really have to tackle it and break it down into workable steps. And then again, just breathe, break it down, and make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed or allowing yourself to go too far down memory lane during this process.
Awesome. Just making some notes. Okay, so in my little corner where all my photos are, I have a bag of, I think they're Betamax tapes when my son was born, because he was amazing, right? My firstborn son, and we had to video everything he did. I have no way of playing those tapes. I've got some VHS tapes. My mom has tons of slides.
Oh, yes.
What do we do with all that stuff?
So a couple things. First off, you should get excited, because once you do something with this is something you can quickly downsize, which is exciting. And once you digitize those, you'll actually be able to enjoy them again, because they won't be on that US or that VHS tape that you no longer have a VCR for. So first off, gather them together, sort them by type, all your tapes, all your film, all your slides. Then if you're gonna digitize these, you got to put them in some kind of order. Usually, if you have any data information, I try to organize it that way. And then there's great places that you can get these digitized. Obviously, there's some local places. You can work with a photo manager like me. If you have a family that's outside of Orlando, go to thephotomanagers.com to find somebody locally. And then there's one or two of the big services that I would recommend. Some of the other ones I'd be very cautious of. The main thing is just make sure you're working with somebody who understands how to digitize and understands all the nuances of digitizing old media. And just a quick example, if you have film, for example, a lot of that film is not going to have any sound. So we get a lot of old reel-to-reel that needs to get digitized. But some of it will have sound. And I've actually seen clients that have gone to, companies like Legacy Box or something like that, where they've gotten things back. And we realized that, out of the 50 they sent, 6 of them had audio. And the conversion people didn't even capture that. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't realize that was, potentially lost. So make sure you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. And then as for slides, by the way, I'm just a quick tidbit. Take the time to really sort through some of those slides. Quick tip, take an iPad or even your phone, put it on a notes page, and crank up the brightness, and that becomes a little light box. And you can just sit there with a stack of slides and give your yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. What I find is these slides are going to be Dad's travel photos. I guarantee you there's lots of travel. Back in the day, we didn't necessarily, we went to Paris. Sometimes you would buy a pack of slides that captured the highlighted locations. So a lot of times, I mean, you don't need those. We can just Google the best, Eiffel Tower photo right now. So you don't need to spend the extra money to digitize that. Your slides are going to be more expensive to digitize, so again, that's a great place to kind of cull through and save yourself some money. However, if somebody comes and tells me that their goal is to, let's say, digitize some of mom and dad's photos, and they want to pick a handful to put up on the wall, they're going to blow these up. If that's the goal, definitely keep those slides or find those slides and digitize the slide versus a paper photo. Reason is you're going to get much better quality, and even though that one slide might be about double to the price to digitize, you're going to get a far better quality if you're going to try to blow that up. But the exciting thing is there's ways to digitize all of that, and then once they're digital, you'll be able to enjoy those photos and those videos again instead of having them on the dusty box.
Awesome. I love taking some new tech, an iPhone or your phone or an iPad, to view the old tech.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
If you put them in the reel, then you're trying to figure out, well, I like that one. Where was that?
Right?
Yeah. So it's not worth doing it that way.
Love that. That's great. That's great. Heather, how can I make things easiest on my loved ones when I'm gathering all these documents and go about easing the overwhelm?
Okay, the one thing I can say about making it easier on your loved ones is conversations and transparency. No one really wants to talk about these things. I mean, it's not like I wake up in the morning and I think, today while I'm having my coffee, I'm gonna write down my funeral plans. You don't just like wake up and do it. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to, walk the dog, do my funeral planning. It's not like your normal thing, right? So just having open conversations though with your family. I know so many families that the kids are like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, I do understand that we don't want to talk about it. However, you're going to have the conversations in order to make sure that it's not like it's news. Right. I mean, I could walk out and cross the street and be gone. And I've had the conversations with my kids, right? So it's hard to get started, but once you actually do, it's like, once you get that done, the conversation, the stress level comes down across the board, and then you have the peace of mind. That's the goal. The goal is the peace of mind. Knowing that everybody knows what's happening, knowing what's happening, and how to handle it. And then with the overwhelm, those conversations bringing that stress level down also brings your overwhelm down. And then when you're having your coffee in the morning or whatever, you take 20 minutes at a time, and maybe you do clean the mail off your countertop. Start there. It's been collecting. You've got magazines from a while back. Just start there and start easing your way in. You don't have to start and dive into the wills and the funeral. You don't have to start there. But you can start decluttering any type of document just to get into the rhythm of how good it feels to now have the mail pile be down to like what you actually just need. And then it starts to feel better. And then you have conversations with your kids or your loved ones or relatives or neighbors even. So yeah, I would just say conversation, and then just ease yourself into it at like a 20-minute, set a timer, watch an episode of my favorite show, which is The Golden Girls, and then I just do my stuff.
I love that though. If you have 15 or 20 minutes to do something, it's easy to take on that task, and then you feel better when you succeed at it, which inspires you to say, you know what, I can do 15 or 20 minutes again, and just continue on that. Diana, you talked a little bit ago about digitizing everything. What's the best step to get everything digitized? And once it is digital, where do I store it?
So when it comes to digitizing, scanning, do you know that there's different solutions for different types of media? So your loose photos can be scanned in a batch scanner is what they call them. You can actually take those 4x6s and shoot them through a scanner. I will tell you, if you have a flatbed scanner, you get through about 25 and you're going to go crazy if you have any more than that. But those can actually go through a faster scanner. There are places you can rent those scanners, you can buy the scanners, but keep in mind that, let's say you buy a scanner, once you're done doing all this, you probably will never need that scanner again, a photo-specific scanner. Then when it comes to things like scrapbooks or, let's say, creative memory, 12 by 12 albums, that's going to require a different type of scanner. It's going to require something that's either an oversized flatbed or a book scanner. If you have the old media, the tapes and the film, you're going to need to go to somebody who does conversion. And that's why I say you really need to look at your scanning as little mini projects. And either connect with somebody who knows what they're doing, that they can kind of guide you in the right place. Or there are a few companies, I was just telling Beth, Forever.com, Forever's been around for about 10 years. And they also do conversion, so there's ways that you can actually send your items to Forever and then they put them into an online account for you. But that's how you would digitize. When it comes to actually now you have digital files. Again, that's a whole other project. You need to make sure that you have a hub for your photos and your memories. Just like you have kind of like one place for your documents, you need to have one place for your memories. And with digital, that may mean a dedicated hard drive. That may mean your main computer. That may mean a cloud storage. But it's not just having that one hub, but also making sure that that hub is backed up. And backed up, we always talk about what we call 3-2-1 backup, meaning that you have 3 copies of that collection. 2 of those copies are in different types of media, meaning maybe a hard drive and cloud. And one of those copies is off-site. So God forbid something happens to your home, there's a fire, a flood, a hurricane, you're not losing all 3 of your copies. And I can tell you a lot of people have their photos all on the computer, and they're very diligent about backing that up. But that backup is sitting on a hard drive right next to the computer. So when something happens, now both of those copies are gone. So just making sure that you have some copy. Maybe it's in a safe deposit box, maybe it's at your kid's house, or it's in the cloud. And truly that will save you. I actually had a client after Hurricane Irma email me about 2 weeks later, and she was just so incredibly grateful because we had worked together about 2.5 years before that. During Hurricane Irma, the power went out in her house. She had spent all day, clearing debris with her daughter, outside. So she took some Benadryl because allergies were bad, went to sleep. And in the middle of the night, the power came back on, and in the kitchen set something off, and house caught on fire, and everything was gone. Fortunately, her daughter woke her up, got her out of the house, and literally, she just had the clothes on her back. She lost the computer, she lost the bins in the attic that had, baby books, she lost everything. And she said it took about a week for her to remember, oh, wait a minute, we had scanned all that. And we had put it into the cloud service. So she gives me a call, we were able to restore everything back to her new computer. She actually didn't tell her daughters that she had copies of all those baby books. And for Christmas that year, she ended up printing out new copies of the baby books. That was part of their Christmas gift, was all their baby books. So because she had taken the time to do that, she was able to, still have all of her memories and still have all that to, pass on to her daughters. So definitely digitize, but make sure once you're digital that you have a hub and that hub is backed up.
And it sounds like if you have lots of different kinds of media, maybe just say, oh, I'm just going to tackle the slides. That's going to be my first project. Or maybe it's getting the photo scan. Pick something that's relatively easy to kind of get some momentum. And
now, one thing I will suggest, if I've done this now over 10 years, I call it a getting started session. I like to see everything. Not because I think you should tackle everything at first, but I think it's important that you don't just take the first box that's in front of you and spend your whole, budget on that. Because sometimes when you look at everything, you realize what the real priority is, and you can then make the decisions based on that. And it might be that, oh, that film looks like it's gonna go bad, I better get that converted now. Or it could be, you know what, my daughter's getting married next year, I have to start here. And I didn't even realize that I had baby books over there that have better pictures than this box over here. So I think it's important just at least look at everything and then prioritize from there.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, Heather, let's go back to documents. What are the top 2 things I should implement as soon as possible to make sure I'm correctly organizing my important documents?
Okay, so the top 2 things. Number 1, start the conversation with family or friends. Start that conversation and say, look, I'm pretty sure I have everything together. Just get another pair of eyes on it, double check, call your lawyer, your CPA, whoever you trust that's in your circle. And then also the second thing would be the checklist that I left. You can even just start there. Put a little highlighter or a little check mark, just kind of go down the list. And then again, a second pair of eyes, a lawyer, a CPA, someone that knows, even your insurance agent. Call the agency and say, hey, can you please review what I have? How does this work? What would happen if? So conversations, and then just double checking, your list and seeing where you're at.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Diana, a lot of times when we're going through these old photos, we're going to find things that we have no idea who the people are, what the circumstances. It could be a relative, it may not be a relative. I'm thinking my grandfather, military pictures. There was a box of military pictures and nobody has any idea what they are. Are there places that we can donate things to, memorabilia, anything like that?
Okay, well, so first off, it is not uncommon to have a section that is just unknown black and white photos, and these are, so I run into that all the time. The answer to what to do with that kind of depends on your family, who's going to want pictures. Is there anybody in the family that's studying, like is going through genealogy? Is that going to be important to somebody? So, definitely think about that, and that will help drive you. If you don't have family that's going to inherit this, or for a fact that your kids are not going to do anything with this, and maybe you don't even know the answers to a lot of these questions, then maybe what you do with that section is going to be different. And in answering your question about donating or where else can these go, there are places. I know in Orlando, the UCF has a program called the Mosaic. It's a Mosaic project. But they have a database where they take old photos. Usually they have different themes that they try to focus on. And I use the example of opening day at Disney World. People have those photos, and that's a unique memory or point in time. Well, the Mosaic Project actually pulls those together, so they have hundreds of pictures from different places that are of that same time. Or it could be old photos of downtown Orlando. It could be the military photos. So maybe those photos are not necessarily important to your immediate family, but it could be important to a museum, an archive, a university, and it's a great thing if you're able to pass those on. So definitely think about that. Work with people that would know who this might be useful for. And in our case, sometimes we've digitized. I've had one case, I think it was with a family that had pictures having to do with like the orange industry here in Central Florida, that they were able to donate the actual photos to UCF, and then they were able to digitize them for them. So sometimes there's some unique things that you can do with those.
Okay, great. And what about, we have all kinds of family situations. If we've got families that aren't interested in any of that, how do we, legacy is so important. How do we transmit that through our photos if nobody really says they want them?
So usually I do mention that a lot of folks, they've got this this bonus room full of old boxes and all this stuff. And if you show that to your daughter or your grandkids, they're not interested in that because what they see is a project, they just see a mess. But if you all of a sudden show them you were able to text 5 photos of you back in the day, all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna put this on Instagram, oh my gosh. It's the way they interact. And I was telling this story to Beth. I had a client and we were joking that when she sent her this photo to her granddaughter, she's like, oh my gosh, grandma was hot. this client of mine, she was so tickled when she found these photos. You know, these great photos of herself at 16, 17 on this beach. And she was like, I've got to send this to my granddaughter because she's like, my granddaughter never knew me like that. So that's what your family wants. They don't want these dusty boxes. They don't want that project that's going to take them months and months for the expense of digitizing. What they want is that selection of stories. They want it in a format that they know how to interact with. And I think that's where you shift things. And there are going to be things that are important to you that are not going to be important to your family. And sometimes it's important to know because you know what, this project could be a lot of time, could take a lot of money, and you want to spend that budget of time and money in the right places too. So there are going to be hard decisions. Sometimes you got to come to terms with the fact that maybe I don't need to do this. But I do think there's ways to kind of flip the perspective and get them excited about parts of your collection.
That's awesome. Curating.
Yes.
That's curating my collection. I love that. Well, we would like to open it up to some questions. I think one of our partners has the microphone back there. Does anybody have a question that you'd like to ask Diana or Heather? Hold on, she'll bring the microphone to you and then we'll repeat the question.
Hi. When you digitize photos, do you have the opportunity to put names of the people in the photos and dates with that picture so that it's identifiable to you and to those you may pass it on to?
Okay, so the question is, do we have an opportunity to caption or put dates and names on a photo when we digitize?
Okay, so the answer is yes. However, how you do that is going to vary on how you're storing these photos. So if we get a little technical, obviously a digital photo file, you can add things like keywords or captions, but not every system is going to read that information. And you have to be careful because sometimes, let's say people will take, and just ease of example, you take 100 photos, you spend the time to keyword this, you put captions, and then you upload them to a service, and you don't realize that that service strips that metadata, and all of a sudden all that work is gone. So you can do this. You just need to have somebody who knows, identify what your photo hub is going to be, where are you going to store these, and how are you going to add that information. So I mentioned this company, Forever. Forever is a solution, it's a cloud-based solution that allows you to upload your photos, but it also allows you to add that metadata in a very easy and user-friendly way. So you can keyword, you can say who's in these photos, you can actually write a story about those photos, and they stick with that photo. So that's a really great way to do that. For those of you that might be, let's say, photographers, something like Lightroom is very, very, it's a much more tech-heavy solution. I rarely recommend that for everyday users, but those are tools that allow you to keyword and make your photos searchable. But the key is understanding, how tech savvy are you, and how do you want to pass this along to future generations. So, and by the way, there's a QR code over there for Forever. They're running kind of a special. You can get 2 free gigs of storage on their service if you want to try it out. But it's a great way because that is a solution that actually is something you can pass along to the next generation.
Awesome, and we have that as a QR code if you want to scan that before you leave if you're interested in forever.com. Any other questions up front here?
Yeah, what website do you do for these digitizing your photos? You mentioned Forever.
Yeah, so Forever,
.com.
Forever.com is a solution. They have a cloud-based So they have different things. They have cloud-based storage. And what's unique about them is unlike Google or Amazon or Dropbox, they have created a model that you're basically buying that storage once and then it lasts forever. They actually create kind of an endowment that is meant to future-proof that collection. So not only are you putting this in this private place where you're not getting data mined, you're not, you have a private place to store, it's also created to pass along to the next generation, and also it is made to continue on to different media types. So for example, if you put video in there today, we don't know what kind of crazy format's going to be available 30 years from now. So they're actually going to convert those videos to the latest and greatest formats in the future. And that's kind of very, very unique in the industry. Obviously, if you don't go with an online solution like that, if you want to do a hard drive or you want to use something on your computer, you do have to do a few extra steps, and you need to make sure that you're constantly either backing that up or moving that to the latest format and kind of maintaining that.
Awesome. I know we have another question up here. A couple of them. Hold on.
A couple of questions. I have 5,500 slides digitized on a Fire Stick, and I have a copy on the hard drive of my computer. Is that adequate, a Fire Stick, and each of my kids have one?
So if you have slides digitized on a Fire Stick, is that a good place to store them?
It's one of the three places. One, so it's certainly a way of getting those digital files back. But I would make sure that you understand what is the backup of those files. So, first off, if you made multiple copies for your kids, that is a form of a backup. But also understanding, is there an offsite? Does every one of your kids know where their Fire Stick is? Are they doing something with that? And then also keep in mind, let's say you digitized them 2 years ago. So maybe you've organized and digitized everything up until this point. Well, we're now 2 years past that. So you need to keep adding to that collection. So you need to make sure that that Fire Stick either is being maintained or incorporated into a current system. So, yeah, hopefully that helps.
The other question, I have all my slides, my carousels of slides, and I don't know what to do with them now. I mean, I could get rid of them, but I don't know where.
So your slides have been digitized.
Yeah.
But you still have the slides.
I still have the slides in carousels, many, many, many boxes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to get rid of them.
So, and that gets back to decluttering, downsizing. I would say the answer is the next step you need to take is to make sure that you understand what your digital files, what that looks like. So you've digitized them, you have a copy on a Fire Stick. You need to make sure you know how they're being backed up and what that looks like and where those are. Once you're confident in that system, then you can get rid of your slides. But I would not get rid of those until you know the answers to those questions. Because really those physical copies, that is a form of backup. So for some people, they keep them for a time, but like I said, so right now that's part of your backup. You've got those physical slides, you've got something on a Fire Stick, but you still have a missing piece of that backup. And now once you get everything mapped out, you know where everything is, you're making sure the backup is solid, then you can get rid of those.
How?
Honestly, I would tell you you're just throwing away those slides. Unless you find an old collector that wants those, there's not many places that are going to necessarily that you can donate the carousels to or the projectors to. Sometimes you might find some digitizing company that might want something, but rarely do I find that anymore.
So I just trash them?
Yeah, usually. So,
And sometimes I think you may need somebody to say it's okay.
Yeah, permission, yeah.
I need permission to do stuff. I'll call my friend and say, can you come look at this? Because I don't think I need to keep it, but I can't throw it away until I know.
And that's another thing, like having somebody just there to help you with that. And sometimes the answer is you might need to do something with those digitized slides. If all there are, if they're just sitting on a fire stick, you're not really enjoying them, and that's why you're having a hard time getting rid of these slides. Maybe you need to get a digital frame and load up
just plug it in?
your favorite 50. And now all of a sudden you're seeing those memories. It's a lot easier to get rid of those slides once you do that.
I did that recently for my parents, a digital frame. And they love it because it's just on all the time. When they walk in the room and turn the light, it pops on, and I can add pictures from wherever I am. So we have an app, and we're making one right now for my in-laws, and I sent the invitation to all the grandkids, and I'm like, send pictures.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if you have the Knicks play or if it's a different one. Yeah, those are both great.
Awesome. I think we had a question up here. Just a second, we'll bring in the mic.
I would like to know where you rent any
Scanner?
A scanner for pictures.
Can you rent a scanner?
I'll tell you where you used to be able to rent, and I think they're still renting, is Easy Photo Scan in Altamont Springs, and it's E-Z photo scanning. I think it's Troy Lippert that probably is still running that. That's where I bought my original scanners, and and I still think they're renting those. The main thing with those, again, I don't know how they're renting them now, but they used to do like 3 days and a week. Just make sure that you're prepping everything, that you're ready to scan. Because it could take you weeks just to get those photos out of the albums, get rid of the duplicates. And when you get your scanner, you want to just sit there and scan. And another thing sometimes you can do is, if the whole family kind of gets into the project, then you can sit there for 3 hours and scan, and then somebody else goes and sits for 3 hours and scans. But definitely do the prep work, make sure everything's ready to go, and then get your scanner. And then also just make sure you have somebody that's, can help you a little bit with the tech, making sure that you can pull those files down, you have a dedicated hard drive or flash drive to save them to. But I would check Easy Photo Scan for that.
Awesome. Any other questions? Got one in the back there? Oh, one in the front, one in the back.
So as far as scanning, say you're going to do it yourself, is there a benchmark for resolution and file size? And I'm going to assume if you think it's something you want to print, you probably want a larger file. And if it's something you don't want to print, what's the benchmark resolution and file size?
So what you'll usually see with photo scanning is a DPI, which is dots per inch. And it usually, like if you were to send your photos, like box them up and go to Scan Cafe or one of these companies, a lot of times they will scan at 300 DPI. And then it's additional money if you want it to be at 600 DPI or further than that. We scan everything, all the photos at 600 DPI, which allows you to blow that photo up a bit. And frankly, if you're going to scan, I would just scan at the higher resolution. When it comes to document scanning, we do everything in color, and just we're also document scanning using OCR, which is optical character recognition, so you can make that searchable. So those are things that you need to know about with digitizing either photos or documents. But I would say 600 DPI, and then with your slides, those are automatic. I mean, you can get higher resolution on those. And that's why those are going to be better quality for if you're going to blow them up. So also keep in mind, if you have photos on places like Facebook or up in, on these, social websites, many times they are reducing that resolution. So if you scanned a photo and then you uploaded them, you may be losing the quality that you actually paid money to scan. So keep that in mind, so you understand what's happening with the quality of your photos and your files. But I would say scan at 600, and then just know that something that's on the web is probably a much lower resolution than what you'd want in your photo collection.
Gotcha. I think we had a question up here. Sue, did you have a question?
I just had a comment.
Okay.
So when you said grandma was hot,
She was like,
this reminded me, I had a couple of aunts that I ended up being responsible for in the last 2 years. And I go visit them in the nursing home, and you see them, and sometimes they have a picture of the person with their name. But I always thought, wouldn't it be nice if you put up a picture of when grandma was hot? So not just the hotness, but what they were like in their youth. You know, this is the person that you're dealing with, even though they're in disguise right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think it helps caregivers. It helps caregivers understand who they were, because really, as you get older, you really feel like you're the same person. That 18-year-old, your sister, the shell looks a lot different. But I do think it helps to capture that personality and remind people around them, you know, what's deep down inside.
That's awesome. Good reminder. One more back there.
Let's get Heather into this. Heather, you've mentioned the documents that we should be storing.
yes.
If in fact we're doing it through an attorney or a financial advisor, is that a backup copy or is that an original?
I would use them as a resource. So first of all, you're going to want to have a conversation with them to know what they can keep for you. If it's an estate attorney, they typically already have copies of the majority of your trust or your estate. CPA, I would utilize that as a resource of what do I need, how do I store it, because everybody's going to kind of have a little tweak on their profession on what they can and cannot kind of store for you. So having those conversations will definitely guide you into that direction. And then when it comes time to making sure you have what you need, then that's just going to be like your individual decision on where you would want to put that and where you would want to store it. But use all of your resources where you've already trusted those people with your social security number, you know, they have your banking information. Use those people as your resource first. Get all of those conversations done, and then what that will do, that will funnel that down to say, okay, I'm going to, you know, put this into my trust. I'm going to make sure that my CPA has this access to this, or that my family knows to call my CPA or my attorney to get those documents. But you'll have to have those conversations with each individual person in your life, and then you can kind of make a decision from there.
So employing we talked about this at a previous seminar, your board of directors, right? And using that board of directors, that you have those trusted advisors in different ways to find out. And you can have a photo and document person on your board of directors, just like you can have a CPA or an attorney or a realtor. So, awesome. Any other questions? Oh, I'm so excited. Did we try and say, oh, what? One more.
Yeah, I have a question about somewhere along the way, I heard that when you sell real estate, that you need to hang on to all that documentation for X amount of time. I don't know what that, I don't remember what that X amount of time is. And if you do get, if I can't, it's outdated, so I can get rid of it. Do I still need to keep that letter that the mortgage was paid in full, et cetera, or what's the time frame for those documents?
So I'm a realtor and I can answer your question. At my brokerage, we store the documents relative to that transaction for you. So I can go back to when I started doing this. Lynn can go back to when she started doing this here at our brokerage and find those documents. So if you ever needed a contract or a seller's disclosure, I can't imagine why you'd need anything, but the closing statement I guess you might need. We keep those on file here. The satisfaction of mortgage is going to be filed in the public record and should be part of the chain of title. If it's beyond 30 years, it's assumed that the mortgage was satisfied. So at that point, But I don't think, Lynn, any idea on keeping the satisfaction mortgage? I don't have it on any of my previous houses.
Interesting you bring that up. I've got a client right now that the title company is asking for a satisfaction of mortgage to see if she has that document.
Really?
Yep.
And
So, yes, it should be part of the public records, but maybe sometimes it doesn't always get recorded.
Right.
As it should.
And we know that like in, 2004 when Charlie came through, a lot of public records in Orange County
Exactly.
didn't get filed.
I think if you have satisfaction of mortgage documents, I think I'd keep those, just for my own records and peace of mind.
I've kept the sales contract on our first house because it was 4 pages. The contract today is 12. I just keep it to go back and look and see how simple it was because I think it's fun for me, but that might not be fun for you. So those sorts of things. But a satisfaction of mortgage you might keep. But
is a digital copy, I mean, like is a digital copy
fine.
good, or do you have to be a piece of paper?
A digital copy would be fine on something like that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is it quick?
Comment. Yeah.
Comment, okay.
Experience.
Okay.
I sold a piece of property off of my...
Got to talk into the microphone.
I sold a piece of property, a section off of my piece of property, and then found out I had to buy 5 feet of it back in order to get my road frontage. And 20 years later, the people who bought the front property thought they owned that 5 feet.
Well, that's the importance of having a good survey.
Unfortunately, the county didn't record it properly.
Yeah.
So it cost me more to save my 5 feet than it did to buy it back in the first place. So it's good to have it somehow.
And that, yeah, that's true. And we had some issues with some of my grandmother's property as well. So a survey, if you still own the property, might want to keep it. That's always helpful. And digital copies of that are fine too. So, all right. Well, did we try and sell you anything? All right, good. Glad to hear it. So my big question right now is what intention are you setting as you leave here today? What are you going to do with the information that you gathered? And you don't have to do everything, but choose one thing that you can implement, put into practice, get started, and take it just, we do this like we're eating an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Now you are our connection to the world, although Facebook is sort of too. So you can share our Facebook page with your friends and neighbors. You can invite someone to come to one of the seminars. If you've got questions, we're obviously always here to answer those questions. And I challenge you to bring someone new with you next month. Next month, we're going to be talking about what's coming down the pike in the way of research, specifically related to Alzheimer's, dementia, brain work. Our partners from Conquest Research are coming and will be on the panel, and our partners from ADRC's Brain Bank are going to be here. So I got to brush up on my biology before we get that seminar going, so I at least kind of have an idea of what we're talking about. We always close each seminar. Oh, one more thing. You were given a survey when you came in. You can use that to register for next month's seminar. We would love your thoughts on topics you would like to see covered. So feel free, if you got an idea of something, write it down, and we will do our best to get that on the schedule. If you are interested in our Downsizers Club, you can see Nicole or Lynn or myself afterwards, and we'll be happy to tell you about that. Our final quote for today is from my good friend C.S. Lewis. He says, "You are never too old to set a new goal." Good thing we had this conversation today. Or to dream a new dream. So I hope you have a new goal and a new dream, and that you come back next month and tell us how it's going. Thanks so much for coming.